said, Dad, the police are here. Mom fell down and her eyes rolled in the back of her head. I said, well, put the cop on the phone. And he says to me, Senator, I think she's got maybe low blood sugar. We'll take her to St. Barnabas. I said, all right, I'll meet you there in about 20 minutes. And when I got there, I heard this big commotion. I didn't know what it was. And what happened is my wife had gone into a grand mal seizure. And from there, she went what's called postictal. Her brain had a reaction to the seizure. And the best way I could describe it, candidly, and she's about, oh, I don't know, about 5'6", 120 pounds, and there was 5 guys trying to hold her down. And it was The Exorcist without any cursing. And they were pumping everything into her to try to calm her body down. Nothing worked. Finally, they said, we're going to have to put her in a coma. I said, fine, but I want a CAT scan to see if there's a tumor in the brain. Thank God there's no tumor there. I finally find a great neurologist out of Milburn. Not on a Saturday night, by the way. I couldn't find anybody. So he comes Sunday and he said, doing blood work, I think she was probably overdrugged and the serotonin level in her brain reacted violently. And sure enough, that's what happened. But for whatever reason, they couldn't get her out of the coma because every time they would take away the medication, the body would react the same way. And then finally, after about 9 days, an anesthesiologist came up and said, you know, I'd like a crack at this case. And so he said to me, listen, we're going to give it 2 hours. We'll take the medication off, and you talk to her the whole time and see if she can come out of it. And I'm sweating and I'm talking and nothing's happening. And finally, it was about 10 minutes ago, and I said to her, I love you. Do you love me? And she shook her head. And I can assure you the room was electric. I mean, even the nurses were emotional. So he said, okay, don't say anything more. And another 10 minutes, he said, say it again. She shook her head. And then he said to me, all right, Dick, take your 2 sons, get out of here, get dinner, and come back. And when we came back, she was not functional. And he explained to us, listen, it's going to take time for her brain to get back in place. But she's going to be fine, but it's going to take time. And from there, she recovered nicely for about 2 months, and then she goes and has her mammogram, breast cancer. So she has both her breasts removed. She starts chemo, and she gets into another deep depression. And I called the doc and I said, listen, this is not stage 4. Stop the chemo. He says, I couldn't agree with you more. She had more electric shock therapy treatments. That was about 2002. And since that time, I don't think she's ever had a bad day. Wakes up every day with a smile. Helps people every day. For me to walk into my house and hear a woman crying in my living room is the norm, because that's part of her personality, what she does with her life to help people. So my message to you is, you know, every time we're out, people will come up to us and say, you know, my son, my daughter has mental health. Thank you. I got a phone call Christmas Eve to help somebody. Christmas Day, I could care less. But that's our life's work. And the people in this room here, the elected officials, all of whom have joined with me in this crusade. But it's going to take time. We all know it's going to take time because of the stigma. I remember when I was younger working for my dad, if you had committed suicide, my church, the Catholic Church, would not allow a mass or a Catholic burial. So we would have to bribe the doctor. I say this seriously, on the death certificate, just so they could have a mass and give somebody some respect and dignity. Now that's changed, as a lot of things have changed. But that shows you in a very vivid way, and I'm not talking about, you know, pre-Civil War stuff. I'm talking about early 70s when this finally stopped. You couldn't get a mass. So the fight continues, and I would ask all of you to join with us and the elected people here who have, to say, hey, if you do have mental illness, Don't be ashamed, because at the end of the day, the whole family suffers. And you know, I've seen maybe 10,000 death certificates in my lifetime, and to show the stigma, a death certificate will say the cause of death, and then underneath it would say other causes. And I would always say to the doctor, I could write the death certificate because everybody writes myocardial infarction, heart attack, you know? So I've never seen where any doctor ever wrote as contributing factor mental illness. But when you have mental illness and you're depressed, or you're schizophrenic, or you're bipolar, do you think you really care about taking your blood pressure medication? No. Do you care about your diabetes? No. So without question, it takes a drag on your health and the drag on your family. So it hurts in so many ways. So my message again is fight the stigma, fight the stigma, fight the stigma. And to this group here, God love you for what you're doing. 200 beds every night, am I right? I mean, who else does that? And you're expanding. God love you again. Thank you all for having me here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator. It's a privilege to have you here today, and certainly we're honored to hear you talk of your own personal experiences and to have the courage to come here today and to talk about those things, and we thank you for that. I also know that you have to dart from here, and we certainly appreciate you fitting us in to your schedule. Okay. Every one of you here today is important to the renewed effort. You are consumers, you are family members, you're first responders, you're hospital administrators, you're healthcare professionals, you're law enforcement officers, you're educators, business owners, and the profit and the nonprofit sector is also represented here. I recognize and applaud each of you and thank you for being here today. I want to thank the members of the Board of Trustees of Comprehensive Behavioral Health Care and our members of CBHCare Foundation for being here today, and the staff of CBHCare who are here in this room also today. Thank you to the elected officials, the decision makers who drive policy, taking the time to meet with us and continuing discussions and to learn more about the issues. Thank you to the several mayors that are here today. A special thanks to Mayor John Berkner of Westwood and for his support, and to freeholders Maura Di Nicola, Joan Voss, and Jim Tedesco, and to Assemblywoman Shavonda Sumter here today, and to Assemblywoman Shapezi, who we met with us but couldn't be here today due to the fact that she had surgery. I also want to recognize Senator Bob Gordon, and I especially want to recognize Chris Hillman, Chief of Staff for Assemblyman Tim Eustace. I also want to acknowledge our colleagues that are here today, starting with Julia Orlando, the Director of the Housing, Health, and Human Services Center, Vicki Sidro, the CEO of Advantage Healthcare. And these two agencies are partners with the Comprehensive Behavioral Health Care in the operation of the Wellness and Support Center. We have rapid implementation teams located at both of these facilities to address the consumer populations there. I also would like to acknowledge Joe Mashandaro, the Executive Director of Care Plus New Jersey, Jack Doyle, the Executive Director of Friendship House New Jersey, Mary Rossitini of Advanced Housing, and I'd like to acknowledge some of our friends from outside the county. Bob Davison, you heard from the Senator, but he forgot to mention I taught Bob everything he knows. So Mike Armstrong, who is our partner in the operation of the Champion Partnership Program up in Morris County, the CEO of Community Hope Incorporated. And I don't know if Jim Cooney's around here someplace, but we thought he'd be here, and he's the CEO of the Ocean County Mental Health Center. So we're glad to have all of you here. And now I'd like to direct your attention to a short video about the services that are provided at the Wellness and Support Center. Valerie, Cheryl, and Julia, you guys did a great job on that video. Then there's me. Did you notice the shoulder motion? I'm Italian, you have to talk with your hands. When you do those videos, you can't do that. Nor can you move in the seat because they got you wired in. So anyway, I have to slow down a little bit. We need to change videos here for the next presentation. But I just wanted to take this opportunity to acknowledge a woman that's been very helpful to us in organizing this event, and that's Joan Wright, sitting at a table back there. And she's probably not going to like this, but she celebrated her birthday yesterday, and I just want to wish her happy birthday. As we're circulating about the county, talking to elected officials about the Wellness Center and all its attributes and what it'll do for the community, we also had the opportunity to have an informative discussion with Senator Cardinale. And he is on board with the Wellness and Support Center. And when we talked to him, he was hoping to be with us to be here in person. Unfortunately, he had a scheduling problem that he wasn't aware of. But it actually worked out very well for him because he's on a beach someplace where it's very warm. He's on vacation. So he consented to give us a video presentation for this morning. And the senator's remarks are going to focus on the legislation allowing judges to mandate involuntary outpatient treatment. So we'll turn your attention once again to the video. We thank Senator Cardinale for his presentation, and also I'd like to mention that the bill will be reintroduced in the new legislative session, and it's going to be jointly sponsored by Senator Cardinale and Senator Nicholas Sacco, and the bill will be also sponsored in the Assembly by Assemblywoman Valerie Vanieri-Huddle. I think that Senator Cardinale sees a connection between the outpatient commitment law and the Wellness and Support Center, and I think he views our program as a potential referral source for those cases that would come through the courts for those individuals that would need community treatment. Okay, moving along. Our next speaker is Senator Loretta Weinberg. She's the conscience of the New Jersey legislator. She's a passionate advocate, and very recently she's been getting a lot of media attention as a result of Bridgegate, and I'm pretty sure you may hear something about that when she comes up. We are truly honored to have her here on the program this morning, so would you please welcome Bergen County's own Senator Loretta Weinberg.
Being someone's conscience is an awesome responsibility, particularly when I'm dealing with 119 other legislators. But thank you very much, and thank you for including me in the program today. And as I listened to Governor Cody speak, it reminded me of a personal interchange that I had on the same subject with him, because sometimes even grandmothers can suffer from some form of postpartum depression. My granddaughter was born in September of 2003. She's 10 years old now. And I was going to be able to, my daughter and son-in-law live in California, and so I wasn't there at the moment of her birth, but I was going out a couple of weeks later to do the duties that grandmothers do under those conditions. But I wasn't able to leave for a week or two. I was a member of the state assembly, and we had an assembly session. And I got a call on my cell phone from my daughter, who was absolutely in tears. I haven't slept. I don't know if I can do this. You know, it's the typical kind of first week of panic, stress that many of us who have had children have gone through. And then I suffered those pangs of, why am I sitting in the assembly? I should be in California. And Senator Cody was the acting governor at the time, and it just so happened that his wife, then First Lady Mary Jo Cody, was in his office. And I went off the floor of the assembly and ended up weeping on Mary Jo Cody's shoulder because I felt so guilty about not being with my daughter. Anyway, we've all gotten through it. My granddaughter's 10 years old, and my daughter even managed to have a second baby and get through it okay. So I just wanted to share that I actually was crying on Mary Jo Cody's shoulder. When you think of the courage that she has shown to get through all the trials and tribulations, it's really amazing. So you all know from listening why your services are needed. And I will tell you that as a legislator, the most difficult constituent problem we are faced with, and it very often happens, it seems, on Friday afternoon at 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock, where you get the emergency phone call. I'm in the emergency room with a loved one. I don't know what to do. They don't have a bed. We can't stay here. Everybody's agitated. So to have a resource like CBH to call on is so important for those of us who take our jobs and our responsibilities seriously. And I'd like to talk to you this morning just a little bit about domestic violence. We have seen such tragedy over the past year right here in affluent, middle, upper class Bergen County. In 2011, 3 women and 1 little girl had their lives taken in what was officially documented as cases of domestic violence. A friend of one of the victims explained, "We worked together for many years, but we became very close, and that's when I first started to notice the bruises. I'd ask her about it, and she always had a million excuses. I tripped, I'm clumsy, I fell. I knew that these excuses were so common for victims of domestic violence. But the victim's friend explained that she was not the type of person to ask for help." And then there's the young man from my own hometown of Teaneck who killed himself in the basement of the Garden State Plaza, who had sent a text at 2 a.m. to a friend that went something like, "Need to talk." This young man, it was almost closer to home. He worked in the pizza shop right across the street from my office on Cedar Lane. Having a young staff and having a senator that's not always so careful about diet, you can imagine how often we went back and forth to that pizza shop across the street. So we all knew him. Friendly, smiling, well-mannered young man. So people of all demographics and backgrounds are affected by mental health illness. And we need the resources, we need the legislation, we need the people to stand up and tell their stories with the courage that Governor Cody and Mary Jo Cody have done over these last number of years. Because then, hopefully it will get to the stage where that woman who was so private she couldn't reach out for help, or that young man who felt he had nobody to talk to, will feel confident enough and relaxed enough to reach out, and the resources of the coming together of legislation, of government, of state, of the county, of our local municipalities will help prevent these kinds of tragedies in the future. So I want to thank you for the work you're doing. I want to thank you for helping to educate people like me that we do have resources to call on, because, as I said to Joan, the first time you all came to my office was, how come I hadn't heard about you before? So now I have, and with the help of people like Senator Jerry Cardinale, which shows that we have many ways to work across the aisle and many things that we agree on, we will bring this to fruition. So thank you very much. And now I have another responsibility up here, a particular one that I enjoy, because I go back to those 17 years when Ernie Villa first came to work for the Mental Health Law Project. And we have a Senate and General Assembly citation for Ernie. Where are you?